and recording,
We are recording.
and I have not heard from Rafi that he's,
He'll probably be here then. If he hasn't said he's not coming, he's probably coming.
Microphones need to be sort of close to you as you speak.
Okay.
And I apologize, I have to leave at quarter of. So,
I'm having a deja vu.
what's that?
I'm having a deja vu. Isn't that just what happened
Since
yesterday?
I have the same, he's
Every day?
cross-country practice
Oh,
this week.
okay.
And I'll be back here at 6:30. I spent 6 hours in here yesterday.
It's too much. I hope you're getting paid well.
Paid in satisfaction.
send him a text, hopefully. Thank you all for making the effort to come to this special meeting. Meg, you don't know, but Dave put together a
Put your,
harbor walkway. I'm not.
or bend it down. Yeah, there
Bend
we
it
go.
down.
Thank you.
Dave put that together for us, giving us sort of an approximate budget for the harbor walkway project.
Wow.
Isn't that wonderful? And there he is.
There he
Yay,
is,
Rafi.
looking very Maine in his plaid shirt.
Yeah, very May, very fall.
Hunting
May.
season.
So Meg, what I will do is I will go to Audra with that to talk with her about our next steps.
This is the amount for each different
Dave
aspect.
St. Laurent put together for us a budget for the harbor walkway.
Oh.
Things that we want to do. So,
Is that what you call it, like a working budget?
a working budget, a proposal, yeah. Microphone. Rafi.
I wanted to look at some of the
You're
details
talking,
on
you
it.
need to
just
have
so-
it for you.
Well, we'll share.
I use this one here.
Oh, there's an extra, okay. So, everybody, welcome to Design Team, and Rafi, this is your meeting.
All right. Well, thank you so much for everyone coming on this, for this emergency meeting. And,
I apologize, I have to leave at quarter of, but that's,
yeah, I mean, hopefully we can, move this right along. Kirsten was going to be able to, was trying to attend today, but then something came up at the end. So Kirsten Campbell is the teacher at the high school that teaches a big art class next semester that I was hoping that we could work together with her students on in order to actualize the mural in this downtown parking lot area. So with Kirsten, she's really interested in the public aspect of it, and part of the big art piece, I think they're doing a lot of larger paper mache, but certainly public art would be a component to it. Just in speaking with her, I said that, there's certain issues with this wall, and the Camden design team has come up with this, the Camden flag mural aspect. And she was very much interested in doing that and working on a curriculum that would incorporate that into it. So, I mean, that's how I can see this being put into her curriculum, having some lessons in mural arts, maybe have some professionals talk to the students. The only thing I would want to be open to is that a student feels that, maybe one or two of the designs are shown to the design team, along with the proposed piece, and, so that potentially they have a voice in what goes on the wall. Or maybe there's some modification, or maybe there's a side piece. I would just like them to potentially have a voice in what goes on the wall. But then that would be presented to the design team, voted on, and then we would work to actualizing that on the wall. I think there would have to be a commitment as far as funds. We had talked about a $3,000 cost for materials. I think there would also have to be a cost for an individual. I mean, it could be me, or, potentially we could find someone else that would have to, be on site and
A
a
supervisor?
supervisor for the piece, yeah. Which I could see to be, when Alexis was talking about it, $2,000 to $3,000. When I had talked to the youth arts about getting funding, that was kind of the component that was hard for them, because we already had a, Colin that we would pay him. And so that they said that wouldn't work, but if they could provide funding to a teacher to bring in an artist to help with that process. So I could see that money potentially coming from there, and then the fundraise would be more of the, $3,000 for the materials. I don't know what's happening with Steve. I tried to contact him just via email, but, he had earlier said that he would paint the wall at cost, which would have to precede the,
Can we step back a little bit to what the students' contribution to the design? Whether we would say, come up with a brand-new design, or take this concept and morph it, refine it, explode it, whatever, or just start, are we asking them to start from scratch? Because I don't know how much we want to start from scratch again, but.
Well, I have a question too. Have they seen this design? Do they know?
well,
about
the
this?
class hasn't started yet.
No, the teacher.
Kirsten, she's,
Yes, yes,
has.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
and she was okay with it?
Yeah, yes,
Huh.
yeah.
I'm kind of surprised. I thought she would want part of her curriculum to be the design process.
I think you could have that design process. I mean, I would advocate for that design process to be there, for them to be thinking about how you could be self-expressive for a mural and look at mural. I mean, part of my curriculum was looking at mural artists, what's the reasoning for developing a mural. And I mean, I think that would be kind of a key component to the class element, is to, what are you expressing in a mural, and that they would develop a concept. And I know it was motivation for my students to think that, oh, well, possibly this could be the mural, and that maybe one or two are selected to present. I think just that aspect of it is important for the student.
Right.
But
Whether or not
I think we could have members of the board come. I mean, there's certain practical elements of painting on that wall. It has to be a, large flat. I mean, so potentially that is the solution. I think we do have a solution. I wouldn't go into it saying in the class that, we're just going to actualize this piece and, with maybe slight modification. I would say, come up maybe with another concept, but it has to follow these parameters. But ultimately, this is probably the one. I just wouldn't want to completely
I
close
think
it
it's
off.
important that the students have a sense of ownership.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree, and honestly, as the person who came up with the flags, I'm completely open to the students coming up with something totally different. And I think it's very good for them to have the exercise of having to think of the practical aspects of the execution that they're really going to be participating in, and also the social aspects of what their vision and how it's going to impact, the community. So I
Right.
think that's great for them to have to go through all those exercises in their mind, and they really can't do that if they have something that's packaged.
Yeah, I agree with that, too.
What would be,
Entirely.
can't think of the right word, so like demographic of the students? Is it going to be their first exposure to an art class, or are these people a little more accomplished?
I don't think there's a prerequisite for getting into that particular class.
Should it be? Or not, or should we be choosing students who are more directed to an artistic endeavor?
Or do you think the teacher will actually be helping with that, because it's
Oh,
all
yeah, and
supervised
the
by the teacher?
the teacher has the proper commitment. But what you probably wouldn't want to have is like a class full of students who are just taking art because it's easy or something, you know?
No, like this is an elective class, so I mean, they have a range of classes to
Yeah.
choose from. So I think someone that's taking a big, because I think there is a commitment to that particular class, that you just can't sit on the sidelines, you have to be a participant.
That's good.
I've seen some of the students' artwork, and it's amazing.
They-
I think they're fabulous.
Our art classes have been historically great,
Yeah.
very, very creative.
And students rise to the occasion,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
especially, and I think having that, you know, having an actual, be involved in a public piece
Yes.
in their hometown is something that
It's a
they would really
win-win.
gravitate to,
It
like,
has,
wow, this is
good
something.
ingredients for everybody, because
Yes.
students are having to come up with an idea and execution. They're going to put something that's going to be somewhat competitive, because there's already another one
Right.
on the books. They're going to be dealing with a group of adults.
Right.
The panel.
The panel. No, but it's also, the win-win is great for them to become involved in a community project. It's fabulous for us to present this mural as being part of the educational system of Camden. I think that's a real win for our committee.
And maybe it will get something started about public art generated by
Yeah,
students, you
yeah,
know.
great.
And it should help with fundraising.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that would make a big difference. And for those people who have been critical to date because it hasn't been a public process, this is the answer to that
Right.
criticism. Being sort of a task-oriented person that I am, I have a question about execution, the actual, okay, this is the winning design, Steve Karen has painted a backdrop for us, and we're ready to go. Who's got the paintbrushes and the rollers in their hands? Will the kids, will the students be participating in the, they'll be supervised in the execution of it.
Right.
And other people who may want to get involved. So they would be able to put the paint on the wall.
Yes. You know, not knowing what
Yeah.
so say this is the final form. Yeah, I mean, I think if it was the flag, I think we should grid in what the, you know, and then it's kind of paint by numbers kind of
But if it's
situation.
not, whatever it is, but
Right.
you envision, and does the teacher envision the students participating in,
Oh, absolutely.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
just what
yeah,
I
no,
wanted to
that's a
make
key
sure
element.
that
And-
they weren't going to do it.
Right, and I know Kirsten was going to see if, like, see, this is where she has to coordinate with her department, like, if, you know, she could take 2 days, take her class out for 2 days in order just to focus on it, or, you know, maybe that extends into the weekend. I mean, I think that aspect would still need to be figured out.
And how about the safety aspect, like, does Dave help with like staging, or you just don't want them up on their own ladders?
No, no.
Oh, no, I think we'd have to have staging for it.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel some of those logistical things would have to be worked out.
We do
Yeah.
that, we wouldn't leave it to the students to,
Yeah, no,
Figure out
right,
staging.
right, yeah.
yeah.
We probably want to run it by legal too, just to make sure that we've
Yeah.
covered all of our
Yeah.
bases.
Because we're going to have to be using the town-owned lot.
That's right.
To get to the private wall.
Sure, I mean, usually volunteers, you're covered, but I mean, I would want to make sure that, you know, we've done everything we're
I
supposed
don't
to
think you
do.
would use ladders, I think you would use
Sturgeon.
Staging and/or, yeah.
So does
Somebody-
this class start in January?
It starts the end of January,
End of
yeah.
January.
That's pretty good timing.
Well, they're gonna get a good dose of reality with lawyers and all that.
How old these kids are? Are they juniors, seniors?
Juniors, sophomores to seniors, yeah.
Perfect.
And then also, she was excited to, you know, to know beforehand, because then that could be a draw for for people that would be interested in this. I know Ava's friend was just saying, oh, well, there should be a mural up there. I'm like, well, you should take that big art class, you know, and then you can be a participant in this.
So you'll work with Kirsten or?
Kirsten.
Kirsten, get that right. You'll work with Kirsten as she develops the curriculum, or,
Yes, and like I said, I wanted her to be here today, but I will have her come. I'll coordinate with her to come
Great,
to
to come one
a
of the
meeting, yeah, because I feel it's important for you guys to meet her.
I think this is great.
Yeah, I do too.
Also,
Win-win.
I want to volunteer that I'd be quite happy to go to the class and talk about like
Oh,
the
you should,
challenges
yeah.
of the wall. So the things they need to put into their
I think that-
hopper to think about it.
Or
Or
also,
considerations of color, I mean, like, I feel like all these things could be, because they love to have, working artists, come into the classroom and be able to express themselves, yeah.
and the components of the wall that they might incorporate
Exactly.
into the
that there's
design,
all
yeah.
these things.
See it up
Yeah,
close
build
and
an initial
personal.
visit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark.
Bye.
Do we need any more details answered now, or shall we just say, go forward and please keep us posted, and when we can, if we can participate in the class, and when
Yeah, no,
Kirsten can come talk to us, would be great. Is there a motion from the design team to proceed
So move that we proceed.
with working with the high school art class?
Yes.
Yeah.
Second?
Second,
All those in favor? Great.
I'm thinking about the finances and how we know how much we're gonna have to raise. So that would be something that we'd have to coordinate with you, as far as what materials are going to cost, and you're talking about equipment for them to use while they're painting. So there's a lot we have to consider before we go out and start trying to raise some money. We need to know how much we need to raise.
Yeah, we'll have to work on the outline of those things. We have what you originally put together as a budget with a number of the components. I'm not sure whether we had staging and,
Staging rental.
Yeah, I think there was like a scissor lift rental, but if it's a lot of kids working all at once, we'd probably want to have scaffolding instead.
so we could split up, or we could split up some of finding those costs out. We can use what Rafi started with, and somebody could say, I'll call the scaffolding guy, and somebody else can say, I'll talk to EBS or Steve Karen about
Yeah.
how much the paint might cost. And so we could certainly split those responsibilities up.
And finding, like with Steve, who's willing to do it at cost.
Right.
Maybe Hammond Lumber is willing to contribute something to it.
That's right.
or
And Steve may
Rankin's,
have
and-
the staging.
Right.
Steve Karen.
oh, true, yeah.
He's a painter,
Yeah.
paint company.
out of
We
Belfast.
would also want Kirsten's input on how she wants to do it.
Yes.
If staging is the way she wants to
Right.
do it and all of that.
Yeah, right.
That has to be coordinated.
Yeah, she was, absolutely. I think she was going to try to write up a proposal. Yeah, yeah,
I would think you'd want a process where you're gonna review what they're gonna do before you go and put it on the wall too, right?
Oh,
Yeah, they'll come up with a couple of designs and bring it to the design team.
Yeah.
And that's as far as it goes, or is it presented to any other people?
I mean, potentially the select board,
Okay.
Well,
because they've,
really?
Well, I
we
don't
could
know.
certainly come up with the presentation of the two final designs, and we will make the final decision.
I mean, they were talking about, they were the holder of the funds, so therefore.
Oh, the
they would-
select board
The
was?
select board, yeah.
Because any funds donated would go into a special account that the town would administer for us. So I think if we have two designs that, two designs that we are all very much in favor of, and we
Right.
get some input and then make a final
Yeah.
decision, I think that's a perfectly fair way to approach it.
Yep.
Sound good?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
That
All
was
right.
easy.
Great, all right, great.
Yeah.
Super,
Thanks,
and then we'll all be
Rafi.
Thank
back, we'll all be back here on the 12th of November, I believe it is, oh, except for some people.
La Florida.
And that is the date we are going to be making a final decision about who's chairing.
I thought you already decided it was gonna be Rafi.
chairing the committee.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, that's right, because you weren't here. You didn't
That's
remember
what happens
that
when you don't show
rule? You didn't know that rule, Rafi?
Oh, no.
Never miss a meeting, ever.
Going back to this, this is just a pro forma.
Yes, that Dave put together for us.
Okay.
Yeah, I called the contractors. and-
Right.
yeah.
One thing that came to mind on these streetlights going down there that I'd like to.
I'm sorry, I have to get
Yeah.
back to
Yeah.
work,
You
so.
have to go back, thank you
Yeah,
so
all
much,
right. Thank
absolutely.
you so much.
Yay.
Yay. Onward.
Holophane makes they make the post, but they
Yes.
make a attractive arm at the top that pushes the luminaire out from the wall. And you can notice some variety on the Bath Bridge and some new work they did in Bath. They're rather attractive. And I believe that might help us get the light from these luminaires away from the wall, where it's just going to, like leave a bright mark, and out into the passageway.
The problem I see with that is, when you've got the arm coming out, it then in the lower part interferes with the trucks, which are quite tall in that little alley space. I've already set the light poles back from the edge of the paving, but by then putting the arm on it, you're putting the actually most delicate part right in line to be hit by one of those trucks.
Well, Holophane must be making some arm that has trucks going under it.
Yeah,
I mean,
but do you want things that
Not
tall?
sure we want it that tall.
That-
Long and short of, but I've talked with Jim Bailey about
Yeah.
this. He can put the light right where you want it.
Well, that's like the ones out here,
The directed
symmetrical.
And
Array,
he would
yeah.
look at,
Yeah.
he'd come down and look before we purchase them to make sure they're going right where you want them. Because they can, I don't know exactly how they do it, but they can engineer them
Yeah,
to
they're
be.
You mean they direct the
asymmetrical
light?
arrays.
Well,
of
we did that out
LEDs,
here, yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so it won't shine like back,
Yeah.
but it'll shine that.
A bit of
way.
it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that arm idea because it sort of differentiated them from the ones in the street. And I don't know, it sort of like closed that space in a little bit, but I'll be willing, to,
Take what we can.
yeah.
It's worth looking into it,
We're just getting into it now, right?
Well,
but we should look into it, because
Yeah.
I think you're right about, it adds a little charm.
And, like looking through this, like, I see this and it seems to me like my initial response is, well, this is as good as we can hope for. But if we were able to bring in others, there's probably a lot of things that we haven't even considered that could,
Such as, what do you mean, other things? What other things?
well, other people, like a consultant who might know things that we haven't thought about. I'm not implying to go over the whole landscape architecture route, but I hope that anything that came from this committee from the beginning didn't ever turn out to be looking like a do-it-yourself project.
Well, we do have Gartley and Dorsey. Dave would be bringing in Gartley and Dorsey to do some drawings. Wouldn't somebody from Gartley and Dorsey be able to say, well, I see what you've created, but it might be better to do it this way?
That is based on Meg's design.
Oh, Meg's.
That you guys
Yeah.
Okay.
wanted the pole size, the poles,
Okay.
because I think we talked about that a little bit. So I gave you the pricing to do it that way.
Okay, as
So-
opposed to any additional time to say, gee, it would be
You can change
better.
your mind at any time, but I just wanted to give you a ballpark.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's
No, it's
great.
good.
So, what I do ask though is that, I don't want to go back to Jim like 3 or 4 times.
Right.
Because then they start getting kind of, oh no, those guys.
Who, Jim Bailey?
Yeah.
That's where you got the
Right after the
information.
parking lot thing.
Wait a
my
minute.
gosh,
I
yeah.
went to him so many times on this that I think my number's on his speed dial.
He'll do anything for you, but I like to kind of
Right,
Yeah.
res-
get it to almost where you want it
Right.
before you start
Exactly.
Yeah,
asking people for
yeah.
things over and over.
He was,
again.
he was really helpful.
He's
with these
super helpful. He's a great guy, yeah.
yeah. Well, would you be willing to ask about a pole and an arm, or should one of
I
us?
mean, I can, but I don't think it's not gonna change your
impact.
price.
It's
Yeah.
not going to have a significant impact. The step with this is to go to Audra to talk about how, well, and the next steps. And, you know, how would we, if the select board said, this is absolutely fabulous, how would we go about funding it and making sure the TIF dollars would be there and it would go
Yeah.
through, they have to go through the budget process and that. So I'm not so sure the arm is necessary, knowing about the arm is necessary at this point.
Well, it's just something to look at, you know,
Yeah.
there'll be other things
Yeah,
to go.
And you have a contingency in there.
Right,
So,
10%.
you know, you have a little room, and there's potential for savings if we use a contractor that's DOT's using, and we don't have to pour and pin, and we can put just precasts in, then it might be a little less, so,
Yeah.
you know, I don't think you're gonna vary that much from that number, you know, you're gonna be close to that number, I think, with what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Unless you changed it, the whole thing, and
No.
I don't think we would do. This is what I'm going to use to take to Audra to say, this is the scope of what we're talking about, and we want to take the next steps. Because this is,
Yeah.
Great.
Very good.
I think that's what you wanted, right?
yes, it is
Yeah.
exactly what we wanted.
I
I,
don't want to misunderstand what you were trying to.
No, no.
Yeah.
you delivered, thank you very much. So I think that's it for now, unless somebody has anything else.
The only thing, I just wanted to say that I sent that sketch around of the harbor master's office.
Oh,
And I
yes.
have not heard any feedback whatsoever from our harbor master, so.
I
I
thought
don't
you meant
know.
from us, and I was going to say,
No,
yeah,
no,
I
no,
responded.
no, a couple of you said, oh, this is good, but I mean, I don't know.
I didn't get it.
You didn't? Oh, I'm sorry, I'll send it to you. No, I mean, it basically, when I looked into having a building that was 2 stories, given the fact that it had to have a stairs, which then had to be to code, and it had to have a downstairs office in case there was a handicapped accessibility, you know, problem, it really was going to be an extremely expensive building. And probably would have taken up approximately the same amount of the ground coverage as having a very simple building that had a very large porch where the
ticket-
boats could sell their tickets under a large porch, so.
I thought that was a very good solution to,
Yeah.
Somebody mentioned adding the hipped roof, adding a couple of dormers that would let light in on the hip roof. You know, just window, or, you know, whether it's an eyebrow or to let
Someone
light
mentioned
in.
that? I don't recall getting
No,
that email.
not to me. Somebody
Oh.
mentioned it to me.
Oh, well, you know, all I can say is ka-ching.
Right.
I mean, basically, the office itself is going to have like wraparound windows because Steve needs to, like, you know, air traffic control, see the whole harbor. So it's going to be very bright inside the office. I don't think
So
we have
that
to
wouldn't be
worry
an
about
issue.
that. And we can also make that ceiling level any height. So it can be not just an 8-foot ceiling, it could be a
12.
10-foot ceiling or 12-foot, you know, just.
Right.
Now, is this going to be in the same location of where the harbor master's building is now?
We talked about
Ideally, no.
moving it.
Because the first thing you see when you go to Commercial Street is that sort of ramshackle building. It might be nicer to look out and see a boat or the water.
that's what the
Yeah, and-
downtown master plan has talked about as
We looked
well.
at those,
Yeah.
we looked at those plans
Yeah.
and moving it sort of around,
Right.
around
So we're
towards
gonna
the
follow
falls a
that,
little.
okay.
Yeah,
So,
we
so,
would
yeah, so
be.
where the boardwalk, for lack of a better,
Yeah.
has a kink in it,
Yep.
is actually about halfway between Commercial Street and Harbor Walkway.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you located a building there, whether you're walking down Harbor Walkway or Commercial Street, you're not looking directly at.
Would that work for the harbor master, though, or is it putting him too far out of
We
the
asked,
view?
we asked Steve if he would have an adequate view from
Okay.
there, and he thought he would.
Yeah.
What was the orientation of the building? That was something I
Oh,
kinda
yes, good point.
I couldn't
I
really
was
tell.
thinking that the porch with the little tables would be to the, I guess it's the east side, I mean, or does Camden
the
Harbor
out-
face south?
to the
Out the
outside.
harbor,
Oh,
facing
so they would be
outside,
facing outward.
facing outward.
That was kind of one
That's
thing.
where all the
Right, so,
sitters and walkers.
Yeah,
together.
yeah.
yeah, so that it would be sort of a friendlier approach for people coming.
I thought it was because it solved his problem of people trying to get into the office before they got to them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was one thing I thought it was good.
And I didn't know if he wanted, a dividing wall in there where he would have his assistants sitting, on one side of the wall in case people just walked in the door to give information or whatever, and that he would have his office in like the meeting area, sequestered.
You could make that in a modular way, so that you could pick it right up and
Yes,
move it, because it wasn't a big building.
No.
So he could do that now theoretically, and then if something changed with your master plan, you could just pick it up and plop, put it somewhere else, because they're very easily made now to
Yeah.
move.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's a little bigger than Shed City would make. I thought they would only make something like 14 feet wide, I think this was 16 feet, but maybe it doesn't
Oh,
need it
no,
quite
I
that
think
wide.
they go bigger
Oh,
than-
really?
oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, and they can I built one build in place to move, you know what I mean? They'll just make it so
Yeah.
they can move it after, they'll put lifting attachments and everything right into it. and then
Oh,
they can
that's
just-
cool.
They can just pick it right up and move it, if you plan on moving,
It's only gonna be moved once, isn't it? Like-
Well, you never know, you could have to
Well,
move it
and
times.
if we're thinking
The
about
water's
sea level rising, yeah,
We
we've
have
got
to
to
move back.
that's the big, that is
Up
the
the
big
hill.
point. Because we don't know what the final level of the parking lot is, if this thing is built as a, something you can pick up, it could be put to the side, the parking lot could be raised, and it could be put back down at
Right.
the new level.
And the good thing about that is that means that something like this could possibly happen before all of those kinds of final decisions and considerations, and it could solve the problem sooner rather than later.
Another
The one
question.
downside is that it would have to be a step up. So, there would have to be a handicap
Yeah.
ramp to get onto the porch. It wouldn't just be like on a concrete slab where you're flowing in and
That could be
out.
one.
So that's the one downside.
What's the dimension of that covered portion where the vendors,
So essentially, if I remember correctly, it was a 32-foot-long building, and half was office and half was porch. So it was
16 by,
by 24. So it
oh,
was
so
a
that's,
big porch.
because,
Yeah.
there was, one time, some of those vendors came to this meeting, and there seemed to be a little bit of friendly rivalry, and so you wouldn't want to have 4 or 5 vendors in a space the size of this table, like,
It will still be tight. I mean, how I envisioned it is they would be sitting like little ducks in a row, but 2 rows back to back. So their customers would be on
on
the
the outside,
outside.
yeah.
the customers would walk down like the aisle in the middle.
No.
on the outside.
So that if there was a line, there'd be room
Yeah.
for the line of people waiting for whatever boat that was.
Well, Cr-
Winter, when the vendors are not there,
It would just be a porch.
would it be, okay, so no covering or anything like that?
Probably for a boat storage or something.
Yeah, he could
He could put a boat
probably
in
put
there, yeah,
some
that'd be actually kind
dinghies
of
or
cool.
something under the roof
Yeah.
if he wanted to.
Dave, if I gave you, you have my email, but could you,
You want that
Email
electronically?
this?
Sure.
that would be very helpful.
Also wanted,
Send you my email, or you have it from all these meetings, okay?
I don't know if Jeremy called you, but I was at a CDAC meeting yesterday, and we were talking about different projects in the town, and they were all very curious about, well, they said, what's going on with the Harbor Walkway, and what's going on? And I think Jeremy wants you to talk to CDAC at some point. So he said he was going to give you a call. I said, well, then I'll let you do it, but I'm looking at you right now, so I'm going to do it. So to tell you that, I think
Oh, you're going to tell me you're not going to do the meeting because you're a member of CDAC. You're not going to do the presentation, but.
No,
maybe
I'm-
Meg will
I'm-
go on.
She's a messenger.
I'm the messenger.
messenger.
Yes. So,
Okay,
just to let you know that,
okay.
which I actually think is really good.
I think it's a
because
great idea.
Put it on their radar screen, our radar screen.
That's good. Okay. So, in another week, I'll send out an agenda for our meeting on the 12th, and if any of you all have things you want to add to the agenda, maybe we'll have an update from Rafi on a conversation with Kirsten, the teacher, and I'll have an update from what Audra has to, what kind of input Audra gives us.
Okay, I have one more thing to say.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, which I brought this up at CDAC yesterday also, that, and I didn't know if it was a CDAC issue, but I've talked to you about it, about if it's a design committee discussion point about the Montgomery Dam. And I really want to have a discussion about that, because there are lots of issues about that. And,
I'd love to have that.
yeah,
I think that's very important. We're I mean, the design team is the downtown design team. It impacts a lot about the downtown, not just the
Right.
public landing, but everything. So absolutely, we can add that to the
Yeah, that'd be
agenda,
great.
because maybe Rafi's part won't be that long, because he would have just had a meeting and some feedback. So I'll add that to the
Okay,
agenda.
great, good. Just for our own sake
No,
to
I think that's
discuss it.
smart.
So, out of curiosity, because I'm not totally up on the dam, as long as we're all here, and I will be missing the meeting, I've been wondering, has part of all this study of what to do with the dam taken into account, like, samples from the mud at the bottom of what's there now, that's probably full of all kinds of weird stuff that would be released into the harbor if the dam were removed?
Well, I can't even answer that question. There's a lot that we don't know.
And I don't know, I think that question was asked at that public meeting. I wasn't
Was
at
it?
the public meeting about it. I watched it. It may still be out there on YouTube to watch. In Florida, maybe, you'd want to, come in, if it's a rainy day.
I've
you
seen
could-
the Knox Mill pond emptied when they had to work on the dam, and there's a lot of stuff down there.
Well, they're talking about if they did remove the dam, that they would get rid of the silt
They
underneath.
take it away.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing, but also, then what is it looking like?
And there's stuff upstream. It's not just the one dam. They were talking about up to.
Well, but right now, they're just talking
About
about the
Montgomery.
Montgomery Dam and starting there and then moving on from there. So I think before it gets to being a done deal, which it kind of sometimes sounds like it is, we need to have some people weigh in on it. And I think the town residents have to weigh in, because I'm hearing a lot from people that are like,
I don't
"What?
think people
No."
understand, it's a huge issue.
It is a huge issue, and it affects so much.
I know.
That's a river system, and it affects everything, all the way up to the lake. And they're not supposedly touching they can't touch the dams at the lake, because they have to keep the lake at a certain level. But to remove the other dams down below is going to be major, and I don't think that all of I don't think everything has been taken into account. Well,
No, it's also, it's not just for fish migration, it's cost of repairing the dam versus removing the dam, planning for large, heavy water events as climate change, big rain events, and so that's
Right, but I
part
don't-
of the
I don't quite get
consideration.
that.
That's part of the consideration. And I don't know if you might want to look for the thing out on YouTube, that public meeting. The first hour is almost all about fish, however.
right, it is.
And you don't get into the other part of it until the man from Inland Fisheries
Okay.
has talked about fish species and
It goes on and on
things,
and
and
on.
that part is very long. So you could fast
Yeah.
forward through that. They haven't done engineering on it. This was just, my understanding was there is some movement to doing this, partly as a way of saving money, but this was a preliminary. I was at the beach, maybe? Was it August?
July.
Or was it
I do
July?
remember there were some numbers, like, this is what it costs to repair, this is what it costs to remove.
Right.
This is like the ongoing cost of dam maintenance, so
Yeah, there is
somebody
that.
came up with those numbers from,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, they have received a grant for a design of what it would be like, or what it could look like without the dam there, and how it would affect the appearance, that whole area.
That's what I've
there.
wondered, what it would look like. Does anyone know? Or is there
Well, all
even
we've
some
ever
old
seen
painting
what
from
it looks like
1820, of what it looked like
When the
before?
water is drained out, when there's work to be done underneath the buildings or whatever, and it's pretty ugly.
Pretty awful.
And they're saying that they can find a way to make it not ugly, but
We have everything from the riverbed then up to the buildings, which is now exposed.
right,
Yeah.
which is pretty ugly. Have you seen it without?
Yes, I
Yeah,
saw it.
It's just, so I don't know. I think that we have to weigh the cost of maintenance of the dam, which I have to say, the town has not done any maintenance on that dam since it was deeded to the town by the Montgomery family. And that's like
Wisely.
15, 20 years ago. Yes, yes. But the cost, in some way, you have to weigh that against the aesthetics. I do believe it's a very vital landmark in the town of Camden.
Yeah.
And I think that has to count for
It's a
something.
feature of the town.
It is a feature of the town, yeah.
Not every harbor in the state of
Almost
Maine
none.
has a waterfall coming
Almost
down
none,
into
right.
it.
I don't know of any others.
I don't know how they'd ever get rid of the Knox Mill Dam either. I mean, that's a
No,
pretty
look at the
major
size
feature.
of that.
It's a
I
giant
don't see how
pile
they
of
can
stone.
look at one dam.
No, you can't.
Without looking
You
at the
have to look
whole
at them all
system.
together. So you can't just take one out and then say, okay, now we'll
Yeah.
move to the next.
Right.
You can't do that, so so these are all questions that we have, and
It's like, what is it, three-pronged? One would be aesthetic/feature of the town.
Yeah.
Another is fish migration, and the third is money. Are those the issues that come up in this?
there's probably other things, but when I was talking with Audra, and Allison was at the meeting as well, she's the fish person, and, you know, I looked at them and I said, you both want the same thing, you want the removal of the dam, but for different reasons. Allison, you want the fish passage, Audra, you want to save money for the town, which, you know, those are valid reasons, I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying, what's it all about? Why are we doing this? Why are we making this huge, huge change? So,
Are you going to, at the meeting, bring up other things or have somebody come talk about it with you? Or you want,
well, it kind of was going to be like what we're
Yes.
doing right now, a roundtable, because if I had more information, I'd certainly share it, but I don't know enough.
well, Mark will be here, that will be helpful. Mark
Yeah.
Ratner will be here.
Yeah.
And hopefully, maybe we'll, ask Jeremy, see if Jeremy could come. I don't know, Dave, if you've been
I haven't been
brought
involved.
in yet.
No, I mean, I know that they haven't really made any decision.
Oh, I know
I
that.
think that they're
Right.
just talking about, I think they're waiting for the study.
Because, you know,
The design study,
we'll
but that,
see.
Wasn't the more the sea level rise study,
Yeah,
wasn't that part of it?
that's part of it.
Yeah.
well, we're not looking at something that's going to happen in the next year, for sure. It's,
No.
whatever
So,
happens, it's-
like, I could see something, in between happening, perhaps. And I mean, I'll be very curious what this design study is, because
Right.
I have no idea if you just scrubbed away the dam, what the whole waterfall system
None of us
would
do.
look like. But if it just goes away, I'm thinking, how the heck are the fish going to get up there? Because usually
build a
those kind of
fish ladder.
situation is, the fish need to leap into pools and leap to the next pool anyway. And
How
would
are they
that
gonna
even
get
ex-
from that pool
Would that
to
even
another?
exist, right?
Yeah.
So the question is, do you create something with little retaining pools built into the ledges that creates an interesting cascade, but isn't actually a dam?
There, money, money,
There
money.
is, that is in the presentation. So if you
Okay.
find it,
Who's
if you
doing the
think it was
design?
July, if you
You've seen
find,
it in Damascotta?
I don't think it's,
Yeah.
It's great.
I don't think it is, but they just
Haven't seen
said,
it.
do you know?
I don't think it's the state.
I don't think so either.
that there's a grant, that's all I know.
Right, and I think they're hiring a design
Yeah, so I-
group that is doing this. But, I mean, these are all questions we can ask the town, because they obviously know.
I think they're gonna have a process, though. They're gonna show whatever they find, and then there'll be an opportunity to come in and talk with them
Right.
about that. I just don't think they're there yet,
Right.
so.
No, I don't
I
think
think
they're.
there was a commitment at the
Yeah.
end of that meeting to, this was just sort of stage one.
Right.
But I think it's good that we, ask questions. Because
I
it'd be
do
good to
too.
ask questions in advance so they can answer them at the next, whatever the next presentation is, so they know they're covering the
For me, it
questions
was
we
more
have.
the PR that's been going on. There have been a lot of articles, and it's been pretty much one-sided, So that to me is, okay, let's just step back from this and make sure that we get our voices heard, that there's another,
You look at the whole picture.
yeah.
I'm sure once the process starts, they'll cover all aspects of,
Yeah.
of what the pros and cons are, I would imagine.
I'm sure you're right.
The media will love to do that. That's
Yes.
what they love to do, right? I mean, that's exactly what they love, but not to change the subject, but does everybody know that there'll be a Rawson Avenue Bridge meeting by the DOT? I don't know if that.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I tried pulling it up on my phone and I put it in a folder and I can't see it on my phone.
That's so
Walking bridge or a
interesting. So they're
driving
going to do
bridge?
like a walking,
So
yeah.
the way, at the meeting I went to, the people from DOT they have a process where they try and make a determination based on the neighborhood and the usage, and that'll determine, whether they put a vehicular bridge, or they're saying pretty much no vehicular bridge already.
Yeah.
But there is a strong possibility of a walking bridge.
It's pretty ugly the way it is right now, don't you think?
Yeah,
If
but-
I lived there, I would not be happy.
But they
with it.
have to go through this
Yeah.
process, and part of it's this presentation.
Okay.
And getting input from the community, so it may be very, important that people show up and go to that.
When is that?
I'll send it to you guys.
Yeah, that'd be great. Send us an email,
Because that's
Yeah,
important to
you probably
us,
wanna be involved
too.
in that, I would imagine.
even though it's not
Because, I mean, a
downtown.
nice walking bridge there for the kids to get to school would be
Well,
terrific.
Because we also have the river walkway, it would be,
Yeah.
It's a
Oh, you
natural.
could incorporate that into,
It's actually rather disturbing to think that we've all been driving over it until very recently, and now they're saying you can't even walk across it.
yeah, that's,
Okay.
be lucky that nobody,
who was the last car, who was the last person driving over? Was it crumbling behind them as they
Let's
crossed the
hope it was
bridge?
in a Mini Cooper.
I have a hard time believing that it would fall if you were walking on
I
it.
don't think so.
yeah, probably not.
I mean, perhaps wouldn't want to do it when it was rushing water beneath, but.
Did we also talk about the Main Street Bridge? Did we talk about that last time?
Yes, you mentioned
Oh,
that
yeah.
they were surveying to
What?
replace that.
To hear what you say.
No, I don't know.
You don't know
I know
anymore?
nothing.
Well, it will happen eventually.
Oh, yes, I know. I just was curious, because they did more surveying this summer, and I'm curious as to where it is on their wish list for,
Were you the one who said whoever's in charge wants to be retired before that project
oh,
comes
yes.
up?
wasn't me.
No, somebody did say that, yes.
They want to be
I did talk
retired.
with the project manager for the drainage and everything.
Oh, yeah.
And they are gonna try and do it next fall, and then they're gonna do as much work as they can. I think a lot of it could be done in the winter. And so that's a good thing, and try and be done in early spring.
Has the DOT changed much with this administration?
I've never had a problem with DOT.
Okay.
Especially the project manager you guys have on this project, who's really good. I mean,
You've worked with him before?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's great.
good.
That's
I
wonderful.
mean, someone else sent some photos around about Winter Street. I worked on that. That was my project, that Winter Street project.
Oh, I did of the
Yeah,
street trees.
Right, right.
Yeah.
They're not done that. They're putting more planters.
It looks great.
I mean, it came out nice, but
Yeah.
now they want to put, and I don't really agree with this part, and this is kind of where sometimes I may disagree with you folks, is that they want to put planters halfway in the road and halfway in the sidewalk. But the problem with that is that you can't get a sidewalk plow down it, so you won't be able to clean it on the sidewalk in the wintertime. And then when you plow the road, you've got this planter box sticking out in the road, so.
So you think
have to
about
have
the
some
things that we don't
practicality.
even consider in,
That's so important, because
Yeah,
then
I
in the
know.
wintertime, you're gonna be like, hey, how come this isn't all cleaned up? And we're gonna be like, well, because we can't clean it with a piece of equipment. You can't have people out there shoveling.
You know, talking about trees, I spent a day in Waterville recently, and that town or city's going through remarkable change, lots thanks to Colby.
Well, I was
And
gonna
there's
say,
this
it's great
new,
having a university.
Joan and Albert Alphont building,
Yeah.
5 stories, and there's street trees planted in front of that. But I think it's wrought iron railing that goes around it to protect it is part of the feature of the trees. So you end up with like a 2-inch caliper tree, which looks like a toothpick. But then this thing that's probably about 5 feet tall that you can see through, nice-looking wrought iron is part of the image.
Oh,
And
like
so I said to myself, like, I've always heard in Camden that, well, we can't plant trees downtown. But why? Doesn't Waterville have rocks and ledge
Well,
underneath
it's
it? And-
partly, isn't it, the DOT, it's Route 1, and it's a DOT right-of-way issue.
I don't know all the
And if-
details, because I wasn't involved when they started talking about all
we
of
could
that.
certainly ask,
My understanding is actually about sidewalk width.
Yeah.
after the,
After the tree's planted, you have enough sidewalk.
yeah, but I looked at those
That's what-
pictures of
was
Winter
pretty
Street.
tight.
It did not
It
look
was
that,
pretty tight.
No, it's there, and if you have to have, I think it's 48 inches.
what do
If you
we have?
36 inches, That's the minimum, but it can't be for a very long distance before it opens up again for ADA purposes. But usually you're looking at 5 feet. You really want 5 feet.
5 feet of what? Width of
Yeah,
sidewalk?
Sidewalk, yeah.
What are our sidewalks?
Well, the issue is when DOT does any work, they have some mandate now where they touch a sidewalk, they have to bring it up to the ADA standards.
Oh,
So that's why a lot of times you'll see when they do a paving job, they won't touch the sidewalk. Because if they touch it, then they gotta change the whole road and the width of the road and the width of the sidewalk. So that they're trying to, that's how they get around having to do all that work, is not get into that sidewalk piece.
Well, the philosophy is a little bit like the dam, like, other places are doing it. And, Waterville probably had
Is
their
it on-
issues
But
too.
is that on a state highway?
Who knows? It has a,
Probably a
I
side
think,
street.
I think that that's an extra complication for us, Richard, and I don't mean to cut you off, but
You
it
need to
is
go, yeah.
5:20, and I do mean to say the meeting is now adjourned, and we can
Okay.
talk more about that at
Sure.
our next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you all for coming.